Good and bad morning for the sake of inclusion. I am your Reformed Baptist, Scott Sowers, and Scott Sowers would like to welcome you to the Mr. Worldly Wiseman editorial. Here, we find corrupt tactics of Wiseman so my audience can keep a biblical worldview when consuming media.
Nothing. There's nothing. I've been in the jungle of Barbieland for 3 days. I was sent out here by Nerf Force to bust a trafficking ring run by Barbies. In a matriarchy like this, Kens are only built to be taken advantage of. It's a dangerous job. Too bad I'm not afraid. Lions, thieves, innocents, the darkness. I've pulled the trigger on all of them. It gets lonely that way. I see people's lives as worlds. They connect with others to make a solar system. I can see how beautiful it is, because I'm always on the outside. Maybe I'm afraid of love. I've always wondered if there is anything stopping me from pulling the trigger on the ones I think I hold dear. I killed all of my companions for this mission. They turned against me, but nothing is going to stop me from my mission. It was a setup. Just like how God set up his children to be Christians even before the world was born. John Calvin once said, by predestination we mean the eternal decree of God, by which he determined with himself whatever he wished to happen with regard to every man. These traffickers better not be no dirty Armenian.
Today, I'm on the floor. We moved. And on the floor, we're going to be reviewing Barbie. Very controversial film.
Barbie, or Black Panther for white open this weekend!
If you were me when you were younger, then you thought any movie you watched was fantastic. Especially when superhero movies came out. So the first time I ever went, wow, that was a horrible movie, is burned into my brain. I felt like I grew up after that. That I was one with the critics and their red-hot tickets. A destroyer of directors and their bloodlines. That is when I went to the theater to watch the 2015 adaptation of Fantastic Four. It wasn't very good. That was the first time I ever wanted to walk out in the middle of the showing. The only other time I felt that is when I recently watched Barbie. Yeah, me and my friend group, we went to participate in Barbieheimer. I didn't dress up though, I just wore my editorial shirt. I'm not that gay. Still, I'll wait for you to type out all your gay jokes in the comments. Yeah, I'll admit it, Barbie made me really mad. I think it was mostly justified, but some of my anger was unwarranted. I've calmed down now, and I am able to see some rewardable aspects of the production. I still believe, though, biblically speaking, it carries a dangerous message. It just isn't a very good movie. I, of course, was not the only one who got angry, which led to social media's motto being, "You didn't understand the movie," for a couple of weeks. Yeah, some guys miss the point, but it can be barely classified as a movie, so you know. It's more a documentary or sermon. It was funny watching critics trying not to get canceled, but also trying to get across that it's not engaging whatsoever. Well. If you're looking for good characters, good plot, you're not really the audience for this movie. Like I said, "You misunderstood the movie" was a very popular sentence after this movie came out. It was always directed towards men, but I also found women shutting men down after they were empowered by Barbie. Let's get back to Barbieland, ladies. That's not what the movie wanted you gals to do. Here's the thing. Barbieland is not supposed to be a paradise. Barbieland is supposed to be a direct parody to our world, to Earth. Earth has the patriarchy and Barbieland has the matriarchy. It's mocking that, giving men a taste of their own medicine. Barbieland is incredibly screwed up behind the layers of pink. Kens are treated like garbage, Barbies are the center of attention, anything that trails away from the norms, like Ellen and Kate McKinnon, is mocked and shunned.
You want a staff job and you want a staff job. Anybody care about what I want?
We see Barbieland as paradise because we're seeing it at surface level. It's exactly like how the Barbies thought the real world was paradise, except it isn't. Humans see Barbieland as paradise, but it isn't, even before Ken took it over. I'm extremely confident that's what's being communicated, but maybe I'm wrong. If I'm right, then no, this is not trying to be a man-hating movie, but when we start whittling the layers down, I still do not think this movie is very respectful towards men. Or women. It takes a lot of jabs at us and doesn't let us hit back very much. They just make joke after joke and statement after statement about how selfish men are. So, sitting in that theater, your patience gets real thin.
You're not listening to me!
That's 'cause you're crazy!
Then your knight in shining armor comes along. Ken. A fun character that men can relate to. Then they go make him the bad guy. You just get badgered by insults. Then the only character you can relate to becomes the villain. Meaning, you're the bad guy. Men are just supposed to sit there and rethink their life, and we don't get to make a defense. So I'm gonna be the guy that talks back. It's very hard to critique this film because I just hear a choir of women in the back of my head saying, "That's how we feel." But I need to make my statement. You presented an issue with my sex, so I need to respond. That's the conversation we need to have. There's a point in the movie where the mom says if women speak out at all, they're accused of complaining. I just knew that was a safety net it used, so people like me would look bad if we argued against what is being said. So fine, I won't call it complaining, but you have given me awareness of a situation and I would like to find a solution. I don't want anyone thinking that I'm a little puppy with a hurt ego. I am participating in the conversation for the sake of the equality this movie wants to have. The hardest scene for me to watch again was the big speech the mom gives, but I made it through.
You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out.
No, that's not at all Christian. That's not at all Proverbs 31.
I've been in the jungle for 4 days. I would have found the trafficking base by now if my own survival didn't become more important. Most of the equipment we brought was burned in the fire, so I've had to improvise. It's worked, but the most dangerous element here I've discovered is the wildlife. Luckily, for some reason, the wildlife has taken pity on me. I'm even able to call this hippo an ally. Much like how God takes pity on man with their obsession with sin and all, He alone gives mercy and changes man's stony heart to be one of flesh. Man is not capable of doing this themselves. They need help from the Holy Spirit. It's mentioned multiple times in the Bible that God hardens and frees hearts. Don't let the liberals tell you any different. Now am I one of these elect? Am I a chosen child of God? No, because I like to say.
I understand movies are expressive. I'm not going to say that expressing frustration with selfishness doesn't belong in the movie. Here's the thing. This film just wants to victimize women. Now hold on, let me explain. I know there's Ken, but let me explain fully. They show women having their problems, but only in response to men's selfishness. The men are the only ones seen as horrible people. There's this one comment the daughter has where she accuses women of being horrible towards women as well, but that's just one drop in the ocean.
It's the one thing we can all agree on.
The only man that is a victim is Ken. Ken, who lives in a world where the women parody the men. So in essence, Ken takes the victim role of a woman. That's why I think this is derogatory towards women, because it only portrays them as victims and derogatory towards men because they act like men don't go through the same kinds of pressures or are only made in opposition to women. Look, I'm a guy. I don't understand female problems. I didn't think my friends were pretty enough to get catcalled in the streets. I do know that men also have to deal with expectations just like women. Just we have to deal with a different form of expectations that women don't have to. But feminism has been focusing on the stuff that we don't struggle with because feminism thinks we're the same. Men and women are different, so we're gonna deal with different issues. Lately, there has been a lot of talk about how men are looked down upon by women and are increasingly lonely. I believe that. Men have a harder time showing emotion, so yes, that's most definitely a problem. Here's the thing though. When I see stuff like that, I feel like men are giving their application to their victim card. See, everyone in America knows that the most powerful weapon in this country is the victim card. Are you black? Cool, you got your victim card. Sorry to hear about it. Are you a woman? Incredibly troubling. Come right in. I'm sure men want a piece of that pie. How about we do this instead? Shut up. In our pursuit to make a fair world, we have made it extremely unfair, where everywhere you go, you need to wonder if that person was a diversity hire. We all have our collective problems, meaning our problems. God has made men to be strong, which means someone is always going to try to put us down. God has made women to be delicate and beautiful, which means pervy men and women are going to objectify you. Men are emotionally resilient, which is great for leadership, but can give us an unloving desire for superiority. Men are overflowing with emotion and love, but that means things can get real petty real fast. Men need to do their duty with regard to their wives. They need to love. Women need to do their duty in the same way. They need to respect. But men are generally poor at this kind of loving. C.S. Lewis once commented that women tend to think of love as taking trouble from others, which is much closer to the biblical definition, while men tend to think of love as not giving trouble to others. Men consequently need work in this area, and they are instructed by Scripture to undertake it. In a similar way, women are fully capable of loving a man and sacrificing for him, while believing the entire time that he is a true and unvarnished jerk. Women are good at this kind of love, but the central requirement given to wives is that they respect their husbands. Doug Wilson, Reforming Marriage. Men need to do their duty with regard to their wives. They need to love. It's so awkward. Why'd you say it like that, Dougie? Dougie Wuggy? Do not put that in the video, Jack. We all have our battles as men and women, and I think it's unfair to say one has it worse than the other. That may have not always been true in the past and may not always be true in the future, but I think it's impossible to say otherwise for the present. I'm not saying we can't lean on each other for help. God has given you people to fellowship with because two heads are better than one. But I am saying stop expecting the world to fix your problems. The world hates you. If you're a Christian, the world hates you because you're an alien to it. If you're an atheist, the world loves you only because it is dragging you down with it. Economics and politics are not going to fix a world of sin. We're talking about sin nature here. The only way we are going to fix that is through Jesus Christ. 1 Corinthians 10:12-14. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it. We all have our separate burdens as men and women, but that's the beauty of God's design. You don't need to fear that you aren't women enough to deal with women problems or man enough. You are because God designed you for it. Another big point in this movie is that there are not enough women in power in the real world. See, when that complaint is thrown around, we are assuming a lot of key details. Like, my biggest question right now is how do we know that the same number of women who want high roles is equal to the number of men who want high roles? Maybe there are less women who desire that. Hey, you know what? Maybe there are less men who actually want those jobs, but how do you know that? That's not a stat you can just count on your fingers with. We can't find that out. But I'm willing to bet that there are more women who would rather be mothers and are willing to sacrifice those higher paying jobs because I have faith in God's design. I have faith that people are still going to be inclined to desire what they were made for, even if it's clouded by sinful flesh. The way this movie covers motherhood, it feels so disingenuous. Sure, they always leave a little line saying, it's okay to be a mom if you want, but the movie opens with the destruction of baby dolls and gives a little quip on motherhood. It is so disturbing for me. Is it not for you? Like you don't really break things you respect. I'm not going to break a Kevin doll because I respect him. Give me a Jack doll and I'll break it in his face. That scene perfectly represents the movement of today, though. Culture needs women to be strong and rich and authoritative because as Genesis 3:16 puts it, then he said to the woman, I will sharpen the pain of your pregnancy, and in pain you will give birth, and you will desire to control your husband, but he will rule over you. So culture needs to devalue motherhood and criminalize submissiveness so they can justify their career as a doctor. That's a world you want your kids to live in. More and more problems are coming up in regards to parenting, and we think we can fix that by devaluing mother and fatherhood. We tell women to strive for high positions and wealth. Tell them that they are masters of their bodies so they can kill children. So of course, men are going to take the exact same message. If we can be whatever you want, then men can be deadbeat dads. If we're only supposed to chase our happiness, then just break your marriage like it doesn't mean anything. Psalms 127, 3-5. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. 1 Timothy 2:15. Yet she will be saved through childbearing, if they continue in faith and love and holiness with self-control. What is shown in 1 Timothy 2 talks about how women are not allowed to have authority over a man because Adam was not the one that was deceived by the serpent. So is this saying women can only achieve salvation through childbirth? No. Salvation only comes through the Father. Mr. Pope. Taking the context from the chapter, the best interpretation is that through childbirth, women understand their role best. They won't be deceived like Eve was as long as they keep to the faith. It's understanding the nurturing nature that God built for the woman. The Bible holds mothers in high esteem, making even a barren womb a curse. I'm not going to say you're sinning if you want to be a doctor instead of a mother, but I will say it is not godly to do so in fear or disdain for motherhood. Oh, and don't give me the Paul better to be a single verse, okay? Paul single and doctor single are two completely different things. A society that does not see the importance of the family is not a godly society. Like I said earlier, giving women the easy out is also giving men the easy out. Men today do not want to be leaders, especially within the family. They don't want the full responsibility of their household on their shoulders. So they either let the wife take hold or just leave. Because let me tell you something, being a leader is terrifying. You're telling me that the structure and faith of a whole household is on me. And if it burns down, then that's on me? I would be more afraid of a man who isn't worried about being a leader than someone who is. Because fear communicates that you sense the gravity of this situation. But you cannot allow that fear to take over. So many men now just let their wives take over due to fear or maybe laziness, so the blame can be shifted onto the wife if things go bad, like Adam did with Eve. At the foundation, feminism is the handiwork of two kinds of men destructive, overbearing men on the one hand and wimps on the other. Because of how God made the world, men are always responsible for everything that happens in the feminine world, whether they want that responsibility or not, and whether or not women want to acknowledge it. Consequently, feminism is not the work of dissatisfied women, it is the work of ungodly men. Doug Wilson, Reforming Marriage. Again, these gender problems come from sin, so breaking the norms created by God is not going to help. Evil does not be evil. Morgana, you stupid little idiot! I've only really talked about the roles within marriage because that's where the roles become the most apparent, but our designs still matter even outside of that. Men should still understand women as the weaker vessel, not to see them as inferior, but to further emphasize that you need to make sure that they are safe. Women should be tender yet strong in the spiritual sense, because I'm getting real sick of the loudmouth women trope. I was not digging cake in the new show. Barbie calls for equality and tries to give awareness to women issues, but also doesn't give a solution, all through a worldly lens. The Bible gives clear instructions on what the relationship between sexes are supposed to be. It's not there to be restrictive, it's there to be healthy. Men must act like a man, women need to act like a woman, and we all need to see as image bearers of God. Husbands must therefore concentrate on being strong for the sake of their wives. Ungodly men are strong for selfish reasons and not for the sake of others. A godly husband uses his strengths to give to her. He does not use his strength to take from her. A properly ordered relationship is one in which the man knows he was created by God to accomplish a particular task, and he knows that his wife was created by God to help him with that task. He was created for the glory of God, and although it may be frightening to say, she was created for him. 1 Corinthians 11:7 and 8. Doug Wilson, Reforming Marriage. Now you may realize I didn't really structure this video how I normally do. I normally take a look at the movie and the structure of the movie and analyze the movie, and then look at the themes, because, you know, when you do that, it kind of wraps everything in a nice little bow. But here's the thing. I have been analyzing the movie. This is the majority of the film. All it is an idea dump. That's the structure of the film. They sacrifice interesting plot points or character growth that they show in the beginning so they can give their sermon, and pretend like they've been resolving character the whole time in the end. This is why I don't want to call this movie a movie. It's a documentary on feminism, because they don't do movie things.
I used to be a Ken. Couldn't get a job. I fought for scraps to eat. I slept on the streets. All because of my masculine good looks. There was hope for me when Beach Ken took over, but that hope fell like the Berlin Wall. I wasn't going to sit around this time, though. I wasn't going to rely on hope anymore. So I joined Nerf Force and became something no one could push around. And now I'm back here at the trafficking base to free the Kens. I can do it right now. Unless someone betrays me again, which happened when Hippo told me that Christians can lose their faith. How could he not tell me he was special needs? I mean, irresistible grace is a pretty basic spiritual concept. What business does a wild animal even have in theology? Does bro actually think anyone asked? The only thing God elected that guy for was being chubby. I told bro to go home and eat a salad for once.
I mean, Barbie doesn't have a firm character arc in this movie. She starts with having a perfect life, then suddenly she's having doubts, physical changes, and the inciting incident, thoughts of death. Barbie finds out she needs to go to the real world to stop her problems. Yeah, you're doing great, movie. You have a focus and you have a motivation. All that's left is to keep the focus on the motivation and challenge the motivation. That's all you need. We get some of that. Earth reveals itself to be frightening to Barbie. Then there's the best scene in the whole movie where Barbie just sits down and soaks up the surroundings. Some people are sad, some people are happy, and then Barbie just sees this old woman sitting next to her and lets her know,
"You're so beautiful." I know it.
amazing! Then Ken learns about patriarchy and horses, and then it spirals into feminism, education, and world-shattering politics, and basically anything and everything not related to Barbie's journey. Barbie's character growth, for the most part, takes a backseat to the message, and most people saw that. Critics who actually liked the movie said that they found the second half boring. Everything that hooked audiences fades while the agenda becomes much more clear. It's obvious the second act is really what makes the movie iconic and makes it so popular. Its message is very apparent, and if you like feminism, you're really gonna dig it. I'm not a person who thinks subtle messaging is law, so don't think I'm docking points for that. I'm just putting in perspective why the second act is so appealing to culture. Then in the third act, they completely waste what could have been a powerful scene because they sidelined characterization. In the second act, Barbie becomes increasingly more insecure, but it's easily fixed with the big mom speech that was cut far too short. So in the third act, Barbie is all, "I was perfect, but I don't feel perfect anymore, and now I'm like a completely different person." So Barbie decides to join the real world and be human. Why the heck would you do that? Barbie has only seen the real world as the source of hostility, fear, panic, corporate greed, and gender inequality. There is literally no redeeming quality from it. She sees the relationship between the mother and daughter, which is fractured. They only get together because of Barbie and feminism, an ideology that has been shown to be countercultural in this world still, even though it's not really. There has been no redeeming value of the real world shown to Barbie. In Barbieland, she is seen in high regard, she's treated well, and has all the comforts in the world. Barbie may not feel like Barbie anymore, but that doesn't mean she needs to go to the real world. Barbie has been given no good reason to go to the real world, so why would she want to go? The human changing scene isn't earned because we haven't been spending time with Barbie, and all we know about the real world is that it sucks.
Yes.
There is no character motivation saying that she should go to the real world. For a lot of people, the human deciding scene was very emotional and very compelling. So you might think I'm nuts for thinking it was unearned, but again, there is no context in the film that doesn't make it a cheap teardropper. We need to use our context as human, our context. We like being humans, or if we don't like being humans, then we like finding reasons for humanity being worthwhile. Barbie has none of this context and doesn't get this context other than a Billie Eilish song. That's pretty good, actually. I'm harping on this one scene because this is it. This is the scene where Barbie's whole journey ramps up into a satisfying conclusion. But the documentary sidelined Barbie and just acted like it could pick things up again like it never happened. This is the teardropper conclusion that is ultimately hollow. The only character that actually feels like he grows is Ken. The mom is more just the feminism educator, while the other Barbies are examples of what the writers believe a strong woman is. And the girl character just fades into the background. Ken, though. I really like Ken. Like I said before, he's a quirky, relatable bro character that becomes the bad guy. Why I think this character is better than Barbie, however, is because Ken uses show, don't tell. A very well-known rule. While Barbie is told the message, Ken experiences the message. He becomes an avid fan of patriarchy because the real world was where he finally found respect. He takes over and takes revenge on the Barbie that never loved him back. If you're someone who liked Ken and hated Barbie, this scene was a huge victory.
Every night is boys' night.
He then loses against the Barbies through the Ken's pride. This forces him to finally squeegee himself off Barbie, not needing her to live anymore. Ken doesn't need to rely on Barbie anymore or need to oppress. He is Ken enough the way he is. It's how a movie should be written. The story follows the character. I'm not nuts, right? People like writing like that, right? That's how writing is interesting, right? People say they thought this movie was funny. I laughed a few times, but I found it generally unfunny. I guess I can't watch this movie without having a fit though, so that may have an effect. People were celebrating next to me after the speech. I finally felt like I touched the ground when somebody walking out of the theater says, "That movie sucked." I'm like, yes! Yes! The sets and world building is really cool. I was glad they didn't hang out in the real world very much. And even when they did, Mattel was really surreal. I thought the casting joke was funny. But other than that, I think it's really lacking. Like, and then people come to me and they say, "Oh, Scott, what'd you expect?" I expected at least a movie. I think you would only really get something out of this movie if you're interested in a feminism sermon. And if you made it all the way to this part of the video, I doubt you're part of that audience.
I infiltrated the psycho base. All the Barbies had to have scrammed. I didn't see anyone there. I mean, why would you stay when you just finished killing all the Kens? The Barbies must have gotten desperate or scared. Somehow they managed to kill all 500 Kens in enough time before I got to them. Those murderers only care about their own hide. How can someone be this sick and depraved? God knows. He knew everyone even before everyone was born. He chose who would enter into his kingdom, and God chose those he would punish. I'm glad that God chose the Barbies to be punished. Calvinism for the win. I can't wait to meet the Barbies in hell. Anyway, I've grown. I've learned so much from this trip. I can love someone. I'll join the solar system of socializing since I'm completely overcome all my trauma and regret. And also, I'm quitting my job so I can be the vet I always dreamed to be. I studied real hard and aced the test right here in the jungle. I didn't believe in myself at the start, but thankfully, Mufasa believed for me. Even with all the struggles, I'll call this mission a success.
So, yeah, that's my thoughts on Barbie. Thank you guys for making it all the way to the end of the video. You guys are awesome. Go in the comments, tell me I'm an idiot, please. I've been waiting for, a little rumble. Gotta get my debating mind back. Please like, please subscribe, and I think that's everything. Yeah. Stay unimpressed with the fools, guys, and don't forget to fear the Lord. I'll see you guys later. I have too bony of a butt to sit on the floor. Okay, we're done. We're done.
Good job, Scott.